welcome to Rock You Like a Hurricane Runner. My name's Simon Tackler, my co-host Owen Jones, and we got some big news. We should mention it here. We are now part of the Ozcast network. You can now find us on iTunes and Spotify.
Yes.
Which is just crazy.
Finally on Spotify. I've had people ask us if we're on Spotify, but we finally are, thanks to Ozcast, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea how to do it.
So you can check us out on their website now as well. Go to the Ozcast network page. It'll lead you to everywhere we're now available.
Yeah.
And, of course, brought to you by KillYourStereo.com.
Like always.
I feel like I should mention that because today's episode is a music one.
Yeah, so it's our first episode with a band person, a member of two bands, actually. Someone I've known for quite some time now. I've honestly, I say this to a lot of people. Her band outright is one of my favourite bands of all time. Not even kidding. If you go back to our first episode, they're in my list of 5 favourite bands of all time. Mm-hmm. It is Jelena from Outright, one of my favourite people in the entire world. How are you?
Oh, bless. I'm really good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's our pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. I guess we should put it out there first. You are not a wrestler.
I'm not a wrestler. But look, put me in the living room with some couch cushions and I might give you a run for your money.
Okay.
No, I'm really not a wrestler.
Maybe we should test it out sometime. But before we get, we're on that conversation wavelength. You do have a combat sport background because I know you're involved with boxing. Or in some
purely
way.
recreationally, yeah. But no,
do you host the nights for is it Alternative Women's Fitness? Is that what
I'm an ambassador of Alternative Women's Fitness. Yeah. They're a really inspiring, incredible bunch of women, just creating an alternative exercise, training, and encouragement sort of environment for women who are just sick of the standard gym. And want a more femme posy kind of place. Yeah. And so I've emceed some of their fight nights. AWF runs boxing, jiu-jitsu, and a bit of Muay Thai. So I've done a bit of those training, but since I've had a knee reconstruction, it's been a slower year for me.
Lovely.
So I've been able to take up MC duties. And the fight night's great. It's a way to kind of in a really, really safe and positive and encouraging environment, just test out what you've learned in class. Yeah. And just test it out in the ring and see how you go. It's really, we have a lot of good fun. And instead of cheering, everyone gets drumsticks.
I like it.
To bash the ground, to cheer each other on, and we have bands playing. It's good fun. It's great.
It. That sounds really cool. Okay, so as someone said, you are the front person of Outright. How did you get into hardcore music?
Punk rock was my gateway drug, and I was really lucky, and I'm really glad it was punk and not other styles of music, I have to say, because that ethic was always front and centre for me.
I feel like it was mine as well.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the first bands I listened to was like Offspring.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool.
It is.
But I'm really lucky that I had have an older sister, and she was really in tune with the music community and worked in record stores and stuff like that. So she was my idol, constantly looked up to her and stole all of her records and, would go through her collection and make her take me to shows once I was a little bit older. Yeah. So my first ever show, I think I was about 10 years old, and she took me to a gig at a local all-ages venue in Wollongong where I grew up in New South Wales. Yep. And I just remember walking into the room and blinking so hard from the kick drum because it was the loudest thing I'd ever experienced, and just going, what the hell is this? I need to be a part of it. Yep. So always she's got footage of me singing Depeche Mode in my sleep when I was 3 years old. So music was always a part of something that we shared. Yeah. But there was just something about punk and then eventually hardcore that just completely captured me in its energy and its ethic and its community. And so it started off with a bit of punk, and then as I ventured out into heavier bands, I just went, oh, wow, I can have the punk energy, but with, really, really heavy down tuning or, different song structures that really gave it another edge. Yeah. So, I kind of had no choice. It just took me.
It was a family thing and just sort of went that way.
Well, she we're talking early 90s. Yeah. Mid 90s actually. So early to mid 90s. So she was probably a bit more grunge.
Okay.
Yeah, but she definitely got me my first steps. Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah.
I feel like that happens when your older sibling gets you into music. I feel like the younger sibling ends up liking heavier or like more out there stuff.
Me.
Because my brother likes similar music to me, but I venture out and find like more obscure stuff. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Owen,
That's the same.
view.
My brother Keenan, like he was the first show he took me to was Parkway Drive and the Acacia Strain.
Oh, that's so good.
I was like 13, and then I've just gone on this like massive ramp of deathcore and weird glam metal and all that kind of stuff, and he just kind of stayed in his little like comeback kid circle.
Yeah, maybe it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not necessarily getting heavier, but music
Like more out there,
progresses.
Yeah, I think so.
I have the same conversation with a friend of mine about Buffy and Angel. I was the perfect age for Buffy because I was a teenager.
Okay.
So when Angel started, I was a little bit older and it's a bit more mature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. What a great show.
Yeah.
I love both those shows.
Both.
I love them both.
Yeah.
So, why vocals? I feel like a lot of people. Because I feel like when people see females in bands, they're like, "Oh, why vocals?" So yeah, because you could have gone like the clean singing route, but why like the harsher vocals? What drew you to that?
Oh, good question. Couldn't play an instrument. My family were never particularly inclined in extracurricular activities.
Okay.
So like I didn't learn any other instruments or anything like that. And to be honest, very working class background, so couldn't afford any extra instruments or tutoring or anything. And I have to say, I think it was vocals first and foremost because I just had so much that I wanted to express.
Yeah.
I had so much I wanted to say. And so that felt like a logical decision for me personally.
Yep.
The decision to not do clean singing and to go with more aggressive vocals probably came from the fact, it's aggressive music.
Yeah.
Obviously, but I think, look, I have to say, earlier on, I didn't want to have a very squealy voice, because it took so long to start a band. And I would always get overlooked in joining bands because, it's pretty hard for women to really take that step in and feel welcomed by a lot of people when it comes to starting bands.
When did you first try to start bands? Just like
Outright's my first ever band.
Really? I thought it was, but I wasn't too sure about that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So 2009, 2010?
Wow.
Is when we started. So, hang on, I have to do the maths. My late 20s. So that's
crazy.
I was 28 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it's obviously really hard to just get that foot in the door. And to this day, you still get people going, oh, no, but women's voices are too high or too squealy, and which is absolute bullshit. But
I have to say that affected get into
me.
bands before that.
Oh,
It took that long.
I started going to punk shows when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Jeez.
Yeah, and obviously with hardcore and punk being so DIY and so community-minded, it was like, yeah, cool, okay, she's doing that, he's doing that, I can do that too. Yeah. And I'm really lucky I grew up with a band from New South Wales called Arms Reach, who had two women on guitar. And so once I saw women on stage, I went, great, I can do this too. Yeah. So that... and the name Outright is inspired by one of their songs.
Okay, cool.
Well, yeah, so but yeah, a bit of it too for doing hardcore vocals was about, I wanted to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. So were there vocalists who sort of inspired your style then?
No, not really. I think it was about me finding my own voice. And being able to experiment and play around with that, I have to say. I actually get a lot of women. I volunteer with an amazing initiative called Girls Rock Camp.
I was going to bring that up, yeah.
Yeah, great. Love to talk about it. Yeah. And so through that, and I guess through other people who kind of listen to my bands, a lot of them will ask, how do you do your vocals like that? Or if I'm a woman or I'm femme, then how do I, get my voice to work in different ways? Or how do I sound like this? How do I sound like that? And I always just have to say, you have to sound like you.
Yeah.
Not imitating anyone. This has got to be, you and your voice, and have fun pushing it and playing around with it. But yeah, it's got to be about getting yourself out there.
Yeah. I mentioned this in our episode with Alex from Cougar Stereo when we were talking about music from the first half of this year, and the way you brought it up with having like strong females in hardcore anyway, I feel like right now in Melbourne especially, we have 3 bands with strong female vocals, being yourself, and then Karina from High Tenno, and as well as Nikki from Pagan. So is that something that like you 3...
There are so many more bands as well.
Of course, there's
that we can add to that list.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Those 3, like you 3 have all released some great music already this year. Is that something, being like strong and like really like, because you have a big like power behind the 3 because I've worked with all 3 of your bands. Is that something that you girls take like super importantly? And because every time I see you guys, I always see like young girls at shows going, I want to do that. Is that something that like you really like? Obviously, you take pride in.
That is honestly all I care about.
Yeah.
If there is no one else in that room, but there is someone that can relate to it in the front row, that is exactly like I was for all the bands that I looked up to.
Yeah.
That is all I care about. And if we can contribute to creating a space that is welcoming in that way and that makes them feel like they deserve that space and they own it, after so many years of feeling like communities like ours aren't welcoming them, then that is all that matters to me. That's really, really important.
Yeah. I have a question to ask you, actually, Simon.
What's that?
So you're 30.
Yes.
And you've been going to shows for quite some time as well.
Yeah.
Have you noticed much, like as a male, have you noticed much, because I know I have and I'm only 22. Have you noticed much in like the progression of like females being more like front and center in the metal scene?
Yeah, I think in terms of like attending shows and, you know, being part of the bands, doesn't feel like different anymore, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't feel like, okay, this is a token thing or like they stand out. I think, yeah, it's just part of it now.
Yeah.
So like when I was on radio like 10, 12 years ago, even in terms of songs requested, even by kids locally, if they wanted to hear local bands, there really weren't many especially fronted by females. And if it was generally people were into like some of the power metal bands, the European, where it was, you know, very operatic vocals. But I feel like more it's bled through to like all genres of metal. It doesn't feel like a thing anymore in a good way. So that, I feel like the change is there.
I feel like we can,
in a good way.
I feel like we can like start getting the term I hate most is female fronted bands.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's what I was trying to avoid
What's it
having
like
to say
being
that.
a woman in the
Yeah.
scene? Yep.
And I was saying another example of it, I thought it was a good thing. It only stood out to me being older and having gone to so many gigs, especially of older bands.
Yeah.
Having seen Frank Carter a few months ago, he made a point before one of the songs to be like, okay, if any of the girls here want to crowd surf or whatever, no guy is going to disrespect you. No one's going to touch you. You know, we're all respectful and everything else. And me and my older brother were there and we were like, this is weird because 10 years ago, you know, if you were seeing one of these older bands, no one would even have a thought to do that.
Yeah.
So that was really cool to see. To be
It's
like,
just greater awareness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Consciousness.
and
Yeah.
eventually that won't have to happen. Like that won't have to be like, oh, that's weird that he said that, or like cool that he said that. It should just be an assumed thing from the crowd. Because, you know, as you would have known too, like 15 years ago, you'd see some terrible things happen in a mosh pit.
Experiencing it myself.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
I can imagine.
exactly
So-
right. And it's interesting, like, it's nice to see from your point of view, seeing how that's shifted, but I would also want to hear from the point of view of other women
Absolutely.
and people
Yeah.
in the LGBTI community, because even though we're seeing greater visibility, I'm really interested to seeing, okay, how is that actually translating into their personal experience?
Yeah.
Because, you know, visibility is one tier, and then safety at shows is another tier, and then their sense of being included is, I guess, next level as well. So there's lots of opportunities for us to try and improve that experience, and diversity on lineups is a great way to go about it. Diversity in band membership's a really good way to go about it. But I think visibility is a really good way to start, and that's where Girls Rock comes in.
Yeah, let's
in a
talk about
really
that.
positive way.
'Cause,
Yeah.
so when I wasn't there because I was overseas, but when you guys played Unify, I know that was, you told me in conversation that was part of your agreement that you guys played Unify as well as getting the Girls Rock like campaign on the actual festival itself. So what is that? What is Girls Rock? It's a
Girls Rock is a camp.
Yep.
It runs a couple times a year. I think it's inspired by camps that have been run in other countries previously, and it's all it's like a teenage week run music camp. especially for girls and trans and gender non-conforming kids.
Yep.
And it's really to empower them and build their confidence through music. So you come to camp, you learn an instrument, you start a band, you write a song, and then you spend the whole week practicing, learning, playing with your pedals, learning more instruments. We do lots of instructional workshops like public performance, and we make posters and merch and all sorts of stuff like that. And then at the end of the week, you perform to your family and friends.
That's
and
cool.
it's just incredible. Awesome. It creates the most amazing atmosphere, and I cry at the end of every day. These kids are so phenomenal. I ran a live performance workshop at the last camp I was at. And we were talking about, how do you handle hecklers, or how do you handle the vulnerability of being on stage? What do you do with your hands to make yourself feel comfortable? Handling all of that. And I didn't even have to answer most of the questions because by the end of the week, they were already so empowered. They were answering each other's questions and lifting each other up and encouraging each other. So special. It was really amazing. Yeah.
You wouldn't get that kind of thing like 10 or like not even, maybe even 5 years ago, and which is kind of, especially in like the heavier music scene, like more the metal scene, I guess. So,
and some of the bands, like the kids have started bands in camp, and now they're performing gigs regularly. So cool. It's amazing. So, and that's been an indirect goal for camp to really diversify the music industry by showing them that sort of support and encouragement from a young age.
Yeah.
And yeah, with the thing with Unify, I know them and other festivals are trying to play their bit in building inclusivity in their lineups. Yeah. And so that was a way for us to try and contribute to that and go, okay, cool, back that up, get Girls Rock involved, support what they do. And, if each of us can try and attack the problem from a different angle, and hopefully we'll get to a point where it's a non-issue.
That's the best.
Yeah.
You go.
Oh, no, go for it.
There was... So I have a question here. When it was like, so when you first started writing lyrics and performing, and this could be a very long topic, so strap yourselves in because I know what you probably answer with. Did you write about topic? So did you write about the topics that you were going to? So obviously you said that Outriders was your first band. Like the lyrical content of Outliers is definitely like the centerpiece of the band, and it gets a lot of people thinking and talking about the issues you raise. Is that something you're proud of, both individually, but as like the 4 other guys in the band? Is that like something you're all proud of?
I can't speak for the oothers in the band, but I know they've always been really, really encouraging and supportive.
Yeah.
I'll always run a concept by them or ideas, and because I really hate so many bands where the front person acts like they are the be all and end all, and everyone else is just behind them. I resent it so much.
Yeah.
So we really feel like a team, and
cool.
I try to encourage that kind of environment in the bands I'm part of. So I'll always try to make sure that we can all back up, what the songs are about, and that everyone feels comfortable with it, because I'm dragging them all along for the ride when I'm writing those lyrics. So I think for me, the political basis is really just very personal, because I've been looking for avenues to express myself and my ideas. Punk and hardcore is the best environment for that, because of the aggression and urgency and the consciousness, I guess, that is behind a lot of the music we listen to.
Yeah.
But I have to say, so much of the political stuff and the very personal stuff has always been to just have an avenue for catharsis and expression and community building. That's really important to me as well. Yeah. But if anyone ever relates to it or, learns something from it, that's always just felt like a huge bonus, because that's never been, the primary outcome for me. It's always just been like, I've just got to get this off my chest, know. So if someone can relate to it and build from that, then that's just, it's a gift.
The first time I saw you guys was with Defeater and Bane at Arrow once. It was 2015.
Yay.
I had no idea who you guys were.
Yeah, right.
Because I went and like Ash Hull was like, come take photos of it, I'll give you a door. I'm like, yeah, cool, no worries. And I was blown away more by the music itself, because like that's like that type of hardcore is the hardcore I listen to like religiously anyway, because like I grew up on bands like YouTube Today and stuff like that. It's like the stuff that I really dig. And but it was more, I think it was like, I'm not saying it because you're here, but I think it was like you as like being front and center of the band, because like I've taken photos of so many like vocalists who just kind of stand there and then they're really fucking boring.
Yeah.
like really, like they just like stand, but you're right. They're just like in the pit on the floor, doing your thing, and I feel,
On your shoulders,
yeah,
in your face.
in my face, and like I feel like that's really important to when. I think just doesn't even matter like who's fronting the band, but if you go to a gig and the vocalist or just the band members in general are boring to watch, you're not going to listen to them again. So I felt like when I first saw you guys, it was one of those things going, oh shit, these guys are actually like quite amazing live. And then I listened to the Avalanche album on the way home, going, oh no, these guys are actually really sick anyway. So
thank you. That's really kind. That's awesome.
Was because I've gotten you onto I've been like, we're getting Jelena on the show. You have to listen to Outright.
From when we did the first episode, and you were like, they're one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
So I've listened,
You're so kind.
listened to the album a few times, and I really did like it. Because for me, hardcore came later, because I was like traditional metal growing up. And then I started to like bands that had sort of, like the punk influence. And I was like,
right.
oh, okay, hardcore makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because I guess you get sort of sick of the overly dramatic metal stuff. So for me, I
can
really
give you
liked
drama, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, as in like sometimes you don't want to listen to like 15 minutes and then an organ solo and just all this stuff.
I think we
So I
have
like
so
it,
much we have to credit the late 80s for that really good crossover shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my jam.
Yeah.
That is
We're
my
so
absolute
lucky.
jam. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, how many of our worlds would not have collided if we didn't have so many great crossover bands?
Yeah.
To go, oh, you like heavy music? I like heavy music.
Yeah.
Just chuck in a raging minute and a half solo and we'll just be best
Just
friends.
listen to Anthrax's first 3 albums and it's pretty much everything we've just talked about.
Yeah, or like to me, Motorhead was the one that like unites the two sides.
Yeah.
Because they're metal or punk, people will argue what they are, but so it sort of meets there. But with the music that you guys perform, I always wonder this. As you said, it's sort of like cathartic to get out. Do you have to psych yourself up to get in that mood to perform live the way you do? Or is it like, no, I want to get it off my chest, so it's like you're waiting to do it?
That's a great question. I don't think I could control it.
Yeah.
Well, that's something I've really struggled with. So in August, I had a knee reconstruction after tearing my ACL, and it's been the most frustrating time ever because I want to be able to just let loose and jump and kick, and so for me, it's just a natural inclination to unleash and let it all out. That's my absolute joy and catharsis. And when we specifically create music that just makes you want to throw things. So that's a part of it anyway.
Including your body,
God, play the breakdown in Iron String and I still just can't not bang my head.
Quick side note, when you guys played at Invasion Fest last year, when it was like, what, 4 months after you did your knee, seeing you with a mic stand was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life.
It was so hard. Just holding onto a mic stand. Our drummer Rory says I've got some sick like Aerosmith moves now though.
Classic Rory.
So I really can't help it. But I also feel like, you do feel a sense of responsibility as a front person to keep the energy up.
Yep.
So if you have a crowd that maybe isn't used to you or is a bit more low key, then, you want to try and work with that and I guess put on a show. But gosh, our very, very first show that we ever played at the Art House before it closed down,
I never got to go.
I was dancing so hard in the intro of the first song that I tripped over the drum kit and fell on my ass. So I literally cannot control it. It's just who I am. But I'm just really lucky that we play music that has that energy that makes me want to do it anyway. You've got to play what you want to hear,
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's always just been fundamental to what we do. And I guess when it comes down to it, with the lyrics I write, it's still shit I care about.
Yeah, of course.
So I do still want to scream it. I do still want to, there's still a lot of rage behind it. So can't control it.
Which is cool. And just going back a little bit, another thing I was wondering too, when it is lyrics that are personal and political and, they actually mean something, going through it with the other band members, is there ever a time where someone might be like, I don't sort of like want to go with that, or I don't fully agree with like phrasing it that way or anything like that? Or is everyone on board in outright?
Again, like the rest of the guys might tell you their perspective a little bit differently, but I am really open in the creative process. So I actually really appreciate feedback like that, because then I can go, okay, great, I haven't made myself clear.
Yeah.
Or if it's something you don't feel comfortable with, let's talk about how do we still express this idea, but in a way that everyone can actually receive it in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Like, especially with a lot of the gender politics that I work with in our songwriting. I mean, the rest of the guys in my band are all men, so I want to make sure that while I definitely don't compromise my message, I want to make it clear that they kind of get where I'm coming from, and it's really useful to have their interpretation to go, am I actually making this point clearly? Will men like you and your peers understand where I'm coming from?
Yep.
So this message actually gets through,
Yeah.
and that it's not just, me talking to a wall. So that is really important to me, and I think the feedback's really helpful. But the most important thing about being in a band is finding the right people around you that are supportive and encouraging. And I'm lucky that Outright's always had that. And even if someone goes, oh, do you know what? I might have a different perspective. They go, but Yells, we back you.
Yeah.
This is, this is your opportunity. You've thought this through. You're not going to say this stuff lightly. We back you. We're here. Go for it. Unleash. I'm so lucky. They're really incredible.
That's the best.
Yeah.
I was going to leave this to the end, but I feel like it's the right time to ask this question because of what you just said. Is there an end goal for Outright for you? Would you rather be remembered for the songs you release as a band, or a band that releases songs that make a change socially and for people personally? Hard-hitting question.
This is just meant to be hanging out for a chat.
Yeah, it is.
Not like existential. Say it again.
So
Songs that create change.
Yeah, so would you rather be remembered for the songs you release as a band, or would you rather, or a band that releases songs that create change?
That had an impact.
Outreach, or just people personally?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like if you can connect with one person and either make them think things differently or see themselves differently and empower them, then that is change made. So even if you don't achieve, social wide impact, that is change made in one person. And that is so much truer than any, widespread revolution, because that is from within, right? You can preach to someone and you can brainwash them and you can change what 100 people say, but if you change how one person thinks, that is true change to me. So I feel full power and gratitude in that experience. And I think, look, the music we make isn't particularly new. We've talked about decades and decades of so many punk and hardcore and metal bands, you know. So, we have a lot of fun with what we're doing, but, that none of the music we make is going to be life-changing for someone. But if the connections and the ideas and the expression and the empowerment has that impact with a fun soundtrack that makes us feel good and makes us unite and makes us feel things, then I think that's an ultimate goal for me. I mean, I've had a letter from someone who I've actually had a couple of letters from people who have said, I'm in a really dark time and I wanted to end my own life today. And then I put on your record and I put on New Seeds and I decided that I was going to give it one more chance,
I think that one lyric in New Seeds, I won't be afraid, that gets me all the time. That gets me.
Yeah. But, so, oh gosh, that just moves me. And the graciousness of sharing that information with me is, I just feel so, so lucky. And that's a connection that means more to me. I don't have to make any more music if that's something I can take from this whole experience.
I feel like I feel like everyone's seen a band, if it's for the first time or for the 10th time, that you see them in concert, or you listen to the record they make, and you finish that experience and going, that's a life-changing experience.
Mm.
Have you ever felt that with a concert or something, or?
For me, it's probably been a few.
Yeah.
I think as a kid it would have been Metallica, hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
But then I think in terms of gigs, seeing Prince, that was one like
yes!
that too. Because I remember,
because you went to the one of the piano shows
to his final concert, and it was just before I quit a job that I really hated. So it all sort of happened at once. I saw him, and then he died a week later, and then I feel like 2 weeks later or whatever. But
Yeah.
I feel like that really hit even harder after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it happens for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of makes me sad about, and I used to work in record stores as well. It makes me so sad when you come across people that only listen to one type of music and you go,
Yeah.
think of how that one type of music makes you feel.
Yep.
How would you want to limit that? How can you limit that?
Yeah, that was
so
honestly
lucky.
that was honestly me for a while, like in like high
Me
school.
too, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
everyone
everyone
goes
went through
through
that
Punk rock,
stage.
that's it.
Yeah,
and then I'm
literally,
like,
like,
oh my God, you idiot.
Hardcore
Yeah.
and metal, and then I discovered just this wide world. I think it was more discovering like mum and dad's records, because now I'm just like all I listen to is like 70s and 80s like stuff, but I still listen to like all my hardcore, my punk, all my metal. But it's just like I feel like opening your mind to different types of music helps influence the stuff you write for your own your own band.
Absolutely.
Because when I was playing in punk bands, it was the same thing. I was listening to like more like 60s rock and roll, and it was inspiring like my really shitty garage punk band. So
Well, our derivatives are all common, aren't
Yeah,
they?
exactly.
Yeah. And did you find listening to your parents' records gave you a way to kind of connect with them that you didn't have before?
heaps.
You think
Yeah,
that's
I feel like
special?
yeah, absolutely. Like
so lucky.
Like half of my record collection is stuff that I've like stolen from mum and dad. Yeah, like I remember like my favorite record memory was like mum has like the Beatles anthology. It's like there's a big blue box of all their albums like on vinyl, and she's like, I'll let you listen to it once. It's like she's like they've been played once, and that was for me to record them onto tape.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, fuck. So I'm like, I stayed up until 4:00 in the morning. I listened to every Beatles album,
Back
like
to back to
side
back.
A, side B,
Wow.
from the first to last album they released. And I think that was like super important for me. Discovering how good the Beatles really were, and like getting like having that same feeling like my parents would feel as they would listen to the same
Yes.
music like for the first time.
And being entrusted with the anthology, bro.
Yeah, too. That was
Yeah.
that was a strange time. But
Well, I guess that sort of leads to a cool question. What would people be most surprised to find in your music collection?
Oh, that's a great question. Surprised. Probably a bit of that Depeche Mode because it's pretty depressing, and I'm tend to be a posy kind of
I was
person.
going to say like a lot of their songs were very dark, but their biggest song was super like happy. Like I just can't get enough of such a happy song.
Well, there's a long era.
Yeah.
There are eras in their career.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're super early poppy stuff, like from 81, 82. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe that.
that's amazing.
Oh, my record collection's just a bit too crazy though, because I used to work in a record store.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like when I was a teenager, it was my first ever job.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was really lucky. And then through uni and stuff. So there's a lot of weird stuff in there. Lots of old jazz and soul as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty eclectic.
Yeah.
Actually, well, everything, all my questions they haven't been answered, but all my questions, like what we talk about, is leading into what I've written. We're speaking about records and record stores. What made you start Reason and Rage Records?
Excuse me. More than anything, the DIY ethic in punk made me want to start my own label because I had started my own band. So it just made perfect sense that we would just release our own stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just really curious about learning what was behind production and
business
manufacturing
side.
and distro and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I want to learn it for myself anyway. And it kind of felt a bit weird that we would put so much into recording and then not getting any of those
Anything out of it,
costs back by just doing it ourselves. But I actually have to say that the best thing to come from it, though, is that it's enabled me to maintain that connection with the people who are listening to our music in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, you're not getting it from a random person in a store on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
You're going to get a letter from me going, oh my God, you give a shit. You rule. This is amazing. Thank you. You know, and that's been a really, really positive byproduct. So it was really just to get our own stuff out, me wanting to have a play and see what it's like. Because I love, playing around with artwork and the different colorways for the vinyl and all that sort of stuff. So I just really liked, and I'm not creatively minded visually in any way. I'm absolutely useless with visual arts and design. So it was a way to kind of get involved in that. And I love that a record is so much more than just the songs, like playing with layout. And so, it was a way to kind of get into all of that. And And so it just started to release our own stuff. And then I really just wanted to make sure that another way to contribute to the scene and just being able to enable other bands that wanted.
You have what, 1 or 2 more bands on the label?
Yeah,
or?
we released the Removalist LP earlier this year, which is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
It's such an incredible record. So, really just like some of them are from New Zealand. So, some of the guys are from New Zealand. So, we just wanted to be able to hook them up with our networks because we've obviously been involved in the community for a long time.
Yeah.
And just get their music out to people who they might not have crossed paths with. We'll be releasing the new Judas Wolf 7-inch.
Cool.
It's getting mixed at the moment. And every other band that I've wanted to sign up has already just been other labels beat me to it. But that's totally fine because I just want to be a facility for them to do their own shit. So as long as it gets out there, I'm happy.
You mentioned Judas Wolf. That's your second band. You actually learnt an instrument to play in that band, didn't you?
So to answer your question,
yes,
now I do play an instrument.
Now, yeah.
Just to join the band, yeah.
Bass? Was it bass?
Yeah. Playing bass in Judas Wolf.
What made you? Did you just didn't want to be the front person of the band, or you just want to do something completely different and challenge yourself? Because I know you're that type of person.
I am that type of person. You know me well.
I do.
It really was just wanting to challenge myself and learn something new. And I actually find that was actually inspired by a counsellor. I was going through a bit of a hard time, and a really great lesson from her has been you actually have to do shit you don't know so you get that sense of achievement, you know? So, and I thought, well, music is a really healthy, safe pursuit for me. So it makes sense that it's something I enjoy and get a lot out of.
Yeah.
And I was just always really curious, but God, it's so good not having to be a front person. I love doing what we do in Outright, but it's really fun to just, rock out on the side and let Meg absolutely rule the stage. She's an incredible front person. I haven't gotten around to
see you guys yet, but I'll have to soon.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's good fun.
As you said, doing stuff that you're not too scared of doing, but you're not sure we're doing. That's pretty much what we've done with the podcast.
Tell me more about that.
I don't know. It's more Simon messaged me one day because Simon goes to our wrestling shows.
Yeah,
he was like, I see you take photos and I heard you like metal. Do you want to start a podcast? And I'm like... You
like Red Cordial? I like Red Cordial. Let's be best friends.
That's pretty much what's happened.
Yeah.
That's so bad. Well, you get what you give, right?
Yeah.
If you don't challenge yourself, if you don't get out of your comfort zone, and if you don't push to see what you can do, then you're never going to know what your potential is. And you're never going to enjoy that sense of achievement and that, oh, wow, I can do that, you know?
Yeah. I don't know about you, but whenever even if it's a person I actually don't know who follows our Instagram or our Facebook, I'm like, oh, so people actually care.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, cool. Yeah. It's this person actually is paying attention.
This person from America liked our page. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm like, we've been around for 6 months and we actually didn't even intend for that to really to happen. So.
That's incredible.
When really part of it is similar to the music scene. It's people in all of this just like doing stuff. So it's we will do this for fun.
Yeah.
And it's cool that we've had support from people from, wrestlers and bands and whoever that sort of are like, oh yeah, we'll help out, or yeah, that's a cool thing that you're doing. So I think that's
what you get. You give what you get.
Exactly.
You're putting in, you're contributing, you're supporting all these incredible athletes and musicians, and then you get the support in return. This is community building.
Exactly.
This is creativity in action. It's so positive. Well, you've wowed a lot of people with your photography as well. I've been sharing your work with a lot of friends, and they're just like, oh my goodness.
Thank you. Well, I feel like thank you so much. We've been talking for ages, and we haven't even talked about the thing I want to talk about most. You haven't released anything for 4 years, which is ridiculous.
I knew this was coming.
And you finally release a 7-inch next week. Is it next week after?
26th of July.
So next week?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh
my God, it's next week.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And it's called Holla. Tell us about the writing process, because I know it's been a long time, and I've been talking to you and us talking to Rory when we're at his work near PBS.
Yes, we've had a few meetings with him
over
before
burgers.
we record.
So, what's the writing process? Has it been stressful because there hasn't been anything getting out, or has it just been?
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah. So our LP Avalanche was released later in 2014.
Yeah.
So we're talking about almost 4 years in between releases. So we toured that record pretty hard, and then both of our guitarists left a little bit after that. So Alan wanted to dedicate his time to his other bands, which, you know, his band Stockades at the time was his first project anyway. And our other guitarist, Brad, is a tour manager, production guru for a lot of major Australian bands.
Is he still with the Smith Street Band and stuff?
Violent Soho, Luca Brasi,
yeah.
and a lot of international acts now too. So he was literally just on tour and away all the time.
Yeah.
So he was just like, look, gotta go earn a career. So so that actually put us in a really difficult position. That's two guitarists out. Yeah. And that is part of the reason for the delay. And then it took a while. First of all, it was really hard to find a guitarist that could play Alan's guitar parts because he's really good. And he just has a technical skill that is a bit hard to match in the hardcore community. The metal community would probably be much better at it, but, you know, not as well connected there.
Yep.
And our friend Joel came on board, so he's been fantastic there. But yeah, really just finding the right fit of people. So not just skill, but, you know, someone who we can really work with and is on board ethically and all that sort of stuff. And so Rory at work one day, hanging out with our mate Link, just giving him an update on what was going on, and Link's like, oh yeah, all right, I'll play in your band. I'm like, oh wow,
right.
So that came out of left field.
For people who don't know, Lincoln is like this well, I know him as being like a folk punk god on like just him and acoustic guitar was the first time I ever saw him play. And when it was announced that he was joining you guys, I'm like, that's weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's really weird. But when I first saw
he can shred.
He shreds like a motherfucker. It's great.
Ridiculous.
I love it.
We're all just standing there going, okay. He's amazing. And he's just such a good dude.
Yeah.
Really good dude. So, and that's really, really nice. So, yeah, that's the main reason for the delay. And then we got to writing, and I mean, the delay could have been longer because we were aiming to just put out a next LP straight away, but we actually thought we've lost too much momentum.
Yeah.
I mean, the band almost broke up that time because it had just taken so long. I remember Brett
telling me that,
Yeah, which was a bit hard. You know, you don't want to say goodbye to something that you've built up from scratch. But
especially it's your baby.
It is my baby. Yeah. I'm the only, founding member left, I think. So... yeah, but then we decided we just wanted to pick that momentum up. And as we were writing more together with this new lineup, we actually realised, I mean, Brett was one of the main songwriters on the LP, and he is on this 7-inch as well. So that, the foundation of Outright is still there. The energy and the riffs and the groove is still definitely there through him. But it's been really good seeing how the influence of Link and Joel has kind of opened up the possibilities for the sound.
Yeah.
And we learnt that more as we were writing these songs, and we thought actually an LP, a full album, gives us a lot more room to play around with that.
Yeah.
So let's build up the momentum, do the 7-inch quickly, and we're already halfway through writing the LP. So we'll follow that up nice and quick. We actually recorded 5 songs for this 7-inch, but only used 4. So I'm keeping the other one handy for something else special down the line.
And you've already released 2, which are fantastic, by the way. So.
Thank you. We were just going to do the one, but with everything that was happening in the recent case of Eurydice Dixon and so many other cases like hers around the country, we just felt it was a really timely opportunity to contribute to the conversation.
Yeah.
And release Holler at the same time.
I like it.
Yeah, thanks.
Were these songs written more recently, or have you been writing basically since the end of the Avalanche cycle?
Probably only since the end of last year, to be honest.
Yep.
Because after Avalanche, we did all of that touring, and then we had a lull. Yeah, just with the lineup change and stuff like that. So a lot of ideas Brett has had churning around in his brain anyway. So he'll always come with, the basis of a riff or a songwrite or a song structure that we build on. And so there might be key riffs that we remember from our history, but they've evolved more just in the past year.
Do you work together in terms of going like bit by bit with the lyrics and the music, or will he come with some music and you'll be like, oh, I can fit this into that? Or how does that go?
So traditionally, that's a great question. Traditionally, we would all collaborate on the music. Mm-hmm. and go, I like this riff, I don't like that. I like how this moves into this section of the song. I like the energy here, that kind of thing. And then I would just put lyrics over at the very end of it, and then we would just tweak it. So, let's extend this bit for a vocal bridge or whatever. So that tends to be how we work, because I really like matching the lyrics to the tone of the song. Like you'll know from the LP, some of the really posy songs kind of suit the more fast, energetic, melodic.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the slower, heavier songs really suit something a lot angrier. So I like matching the tone of the theme to the tone of the music.
Yep.
But Holla, the title track on the 7-inch in particular, we kind of flipped it. We had a really slow drum beat and a really creepy guitar sound. And they were about to throw that out, and I went, "Oh, I actually really like that. That makes me feel like there's someone stalking me. That makes me. I feel that feels really creepy, and I feel like there's someone coming up behind me. I would love to write a song about this."
Yeah.
And everyone just went, "Fuck yeah! All right, let's make this happen. How do we build on that creepiness? How do we build up that sense of paranoia and all of that?" And then how do we hit it hard and flip it? So it's not about victimization. It's actually about accountability, So that was really fun to just go at it differently. I never get a chance to kind of
explain,
do it that way.
Yeah.
I normally just lay it on afterwards.
That's really cool to hear, because now when people hear that song after hearing this, they won't think, oh, this was a song, and then they just match the music to it. It's like, cool to hear that
It had a
process.
lot of intent from the very, very beginning. Yeah. And it's cool because I'm only just learning to play bass still for that other band. I think I'm all right now. But because I'm not as musically minded in that way, I feel like my only way of contributing is as a listener.
Yeah.
So it felt really cool for me to be part of that process.
Cool. And I just, one of the reasons why I asked that is because, growing up listening to heavy music, I always wonder sometimes, do you sort of match the vocals to the music? Because I watched this interview with a songwriter, and he was saying he would just make up words to fit the melody. But I'm like, when the lyrics have intent, you sort of can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I definitely work on phrasing with a riff.
Yeah.
And it's really funny, Brett and I might totally disagree. Because he might write a riff and go, because Brett used to do vocals in a band called Shot Point Blank in the early 2000s. So he can, even though he might write a riff, he'll think of it as a vocalist, which is actually a really good advantage for me. Some guitarists are brilliant guitarists, but they create no space for vocals in their songwriting because they just don't think that way.
Yeah.
So I'm really lucky in that way. And so Brett will be like, I can totally see the phrasing like this. And I'd be like, nope, do not hear that whatsoever. Your timing is weird. This is how I would do it. And he's obviously always supportive, but he has really great ideas that I would not have think of because we just come at it from two totally different angles. But I think everyone's very personal too in how they do it. But I definitely work with phrasing because that is a way that my vocals can be another instrument in the mix, really. I mean, rhythmically, it's another instrument. So I kind of work on that, and then the lyrics will go to fit the phrasing. That's how I tend to work. Yeah. And because part of that phrasing is also what has impact, especially when you're thinking about where would crew vocals fit really well. You go, yes, it needs to be short and sharp, and I kind of think of it in those terms. Okay.
So I'm going to fit a wrestling question in there because we have to, because this is part of the show. But I feel like it relates to a lot of the stuff that we've talked about. So
stage dives and jumping off the
if you want.
Seriously, we're making this happen.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, okay.
We'll be sick.
We'll make a film clip.
But you know how many bands have asked me, going, dude, you're in the business. Can we do a film clip? I'm like, hey, here's who you have to talk to, and no one does. So I feel like we should make it happen.
We should. I just want, someone in a wrestling mask diving off the ropes, but it actually being into the crowd.
Yeah.
No one listening to this can steal my idea. Rory will come after you because he's a wrestling fiend.
So in the world of wrestling at the moment, the women are changing the forefront of the sport and everywhere, and Simon sees that all the time as well.
Fuck yeah.
Female wrestlers, they're main eventing all the major shows. They're doing main eventing pay-per-views and they're main eventing indie shows everywhere. And there's even like one of the biggest promotions in Japan is an all women's promotion called Shima. It's a fantastic promotion.
Right.
Well, that's in America. And then there's Stardom in Japan. My apologies. But they're no longer a visual attraction like they were in the 90s. All that bullshit that they were.
Okay.
But like their ability in the ring is the reason why people go to shows now. Do you find that's helping? That's happening in the music scene as well. A lot of people they're not going to support the bands because it's. As we said before, the female fronted bands, so I'll support them. They're going because the chicks in the band kick ass. Have you noticed that from personally, but also as an outsider?
I think there's still not enough support because even if you're still just going to support women in bands because they are women in bands, you're essentially saying that it is tokenistic.
Yeah.
Even though you are trying to create a community of encouragement.
Yeah.
But the truth is they are all great. They are all facing incredible odds and vulnerability to just get up there and do it. One thing I've said before is that I feel like women and the LGBTI community in particular and people of colour in particular, they're the punks of the punk community. You know, not only do they have to deal with the bullshit of mainstream society, they've got to deal with that same bullshit in their own scenes, right? So there's a lot to overcome to do that. So fuck, that stage is yours, that microphone is yours, you know, you deserve it more than anything. So I think the women doing all of that have always kicked ass.
Yeah.
They've just not been taken seriously.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's what you're seeing in the community now, and that it is actually being taken seriously and being acknowledged and valued for their contribution instead of being seen as an other, which is what has defined our experience in the past. Yeah, in my opinion. And I actually just think seeing more women and more gender non-conforming and trans people on stage as well has just made bands more interesting. God, like we're getting different voices, we're getting different storytelling, different experiences in the lyrics, different aesthetic on stage. It's just so much better than the same four bloody white dudes with skinheads in a row playing the same, you know, I mean, I love Youth Crew and I grew up on it, but those shows get pretty dull when it's the same thing. So if I'm going to give you my $20 and I'm going to stand on my two old injured legs for 5 hours, then show me different voices, show me different styles, different music, different energy, different stories.
So as we've said, Outright is coming back. There is new music and the launch is next week. If people want to get tickets to the show, where can they do that?
I can rock up at the door.
So go to Old Bar. It's next week on the 26th.
Yep, Thursday night.
Nice.
Yep.
So hear new music.
Old
Hear
music.
some of the old music.
An incredible lineup too.
Have a damn good
It is a
time.
really good
Yeah,
lineup,
some interstaters as well. It's going to be a really strong night.
In Trenches playing a very rare show. I like that.
And look, if this chat hasn't sold you, I think we're going to end the show.
We'll play this. We don't play. This is the first time we've played a full song on the show. This is the show of first. This one, I really like it. So we're gonna play the title track of the 7-inch Holler. Just briefly talk about what this song's about before we.
So this song is explaining the experience of street harassment and stalking and catcalling for that a lot of women experience on the street. So it is definitely about that experience of being stalked and feeling victimized, but the part I really enjoy about this song is where we flip it on the head and actually make it about us watching the perpetrator and making them accountable for their behavior. They end up being the prey.
Yeah.
So it's an empowerment through that.
Love it. Well,
Nice.
Jelena, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. I've really had a great time. Thank you so much,
problem.
guys.
Thanks a lot. Go to the Old Bar. It's next week. Go and see Outright. Hear and play some new music. Here it is.
I feel out control. Delighting power tonight. I'm the same thing you stole. I want you walk by. You think you get it all. You have to run to me. That I stumble and fall. You bring me to my knees. What if the knee strikes up? What if the